Chances are, if you have Googled fertility diet, you probably came away from that search with more questions than you got answers. Today, I'm gonna bust some big food myths for you so you can get on the right path. If you don't know me or if you're new here, my name is Whitney. I'm a registered dietitian turned fertility coach, and I help busy women get out of the Google spiral and get pregnant. As a board-certified food and fertility nerd, I've helped hundreds of women figure out their fertility so they can grow the family of their dreams. Today, we're gonna be talking about the biggest food myths that I see plaguing the fertility industry, the things that I've helped my clients with, and the things that I am sure if you're here watching this video that you have struggled with as well. As always, this video is meant for education purposes only and is not meant to be a replacement for medical advice. The first issue I want to talk about is not necessarily a myth, but it is a big issue that I see, and that is getting advice from too many people from too many places. The internet is a wide and vast, amazing place, but it is overwhelming if you're trying to narrow it down into a very specific eating plan just for you and not what worked for everybody else. Specifically, I see this issue with fertility Facebook groups, and I know that these groups are well-meaning. It is awesome to be able to connect with other people who are going through the same thing you are, but if you said something about a diet in one of those Facebook groups, just sit back and watch the pot boil over. There are so many opinions, so many people who feel very strongly because diet is so personal. It is so very personal and no one wants to be wrong. And so we tend to get really defensive about something that worked for us or something that worked for someone we know. And it can kind of be a pile on. And you can get tons of conflicting advice too. Someone will say go vegan, somebody will say go Atkins, somebody says do paleo. Another person's just can't stop talking about the AIP diet, the autoimmune protocol. Like, there are so many different things that work really well for certain people, but it does not mean that it's going to work for you. This always reminds me of my client Morgan. I love this woman. She still is. I'm just not working with her anymore. We've finished our time together. But you talk about a smart, motivated, strong, successful woman. She fit the bill. But the problem was, and what happened and why she ended up hiring me, she was trying to do everything that everyone was recommending. She was taking advice from fertility Facebook groups. She was taking advice from coworkers. She was taking diet advice from her mom. She was buying all the books. And so when she finally met with me, and she had like 5 foods that she was allowed to eat, and her diet had just become so increasingly restrictive. And I'm gonna get to that in a second and talk about the importance of variety. But her biggest issue was like, she was just absolutely overwhelmed, and it just was impossible for her to maintain, and her stress levels and anxiety were absolutely through the roof. And so when you're talking about food, it is a very, very, very personal topic. And what Susan down the road needed and what worked for her does not mean that that's going to be what you have to do or what's going to work for you. I always help my clients try and get as much variety as possible in their diet, but also help calm some of that noise so that you can focus on what's working for you, not what everybody needs to do. Let me know in the comments, first of all, I want to know, have you ever been in a fertility Facebook group? And if so, what was your experience? And then number 2, have you ever Googled fertility diet? I want to know in the comments because I know you're not alone and I really want to talk about it. This is something that we all do, and diet is such a complex topic. It's always something that I love talking about. So if you can, comment below if you've done either of those 2 things. The second issue that I see a lot of women diving into or having issues with is restriction. We are masters at restrictive eating. You tell a woman to quit doing something or cut something out or reduce something, and she knows how to do it. She's been doing it since she was 14, right? And so restriction is not something new to us, and it's something that we naturally gravitate towards when we're trying to control a situation that's not controllable, like fertility. We can't control when you're going to get pregnant, and so what we do is tend to get really strict about the things that we're eating, hoping that that's going to be the thing that gets us pregnant. And while food is a very important piece of the fertility puzzle, getting super restrictive and cutting out entire food groups, cutting out entire macronutrient lists, it can create a lot of problems when we start talking about stress. Well, as you can tell, it is a different day. My camera died and I had to go pick up the kids. Food is more than fuel. And when we're just focused on restriction, it can create a lot of stress and anxiety about eating. And it can actually change how we digest and absorb nutrients. And this is critical if you're trying to stack up on nutrient density foods for egg quality, for hormone production, all of those reasons why you're eating that way. And it can also increase the amount of stress we're experiencing and isolate us away from our friends. And I always think about my client Kaylee whenever I talk about this, because when I say her food logs were the stuff of a dietitian's wet dream. Like, her food logs were beautiful. But when we kind of got under the surface a little bit more, she was feeling very disconnected from her life, and she was spiraling in the fertility world. She had stopped going out with her friends because she didn't want to eat at restaurants because she couldn't control what was in the food. She had stopped going on date nights. She wasn't going to barbecues. If she did go into a social event, she brought her own food because she wasn't sure how anybody else was going to be cooking it. And she was on her own little iceberg, and it was the exact opposite of what she wanted, because her fertility just got worse. Her cycles kept lengthening. Her ovulation was really inconsistent. And when we checked her Dutch hormone test, her hormones were just deadline. They were not deadline. What's the word? Flatline. That's the word I'm looking for. Just flatlined. And so over the course of 3 months that we worked together, we focused primarily on incorporating more variety in her diet, more pleasure, joy, connection with her friends and her family and partner. And what we saw is that her cycle starting to shorten up. Her ovulation got stronger. Her sex hormone production was stronger. Her fertile mucus production was better. And so all of the signs of fertility that I look for when I work with clients were improving, not by restricting more, but by incorporating more variety and using food, still using food as a tool to heal, but in a very different way than what we're used to. Now, if Kaylee's story sounds all too familiar and you are ready to ditch the restrictive diet cycle yourself to help build your fertility from the ground up, then you are going to love my Fertile Plate Method Essentials course. This is my step-by-step formula on how to build your plate and your snacks to help support your fertility without jacking up all of your stress levels. Inside the course, I'll give you a crash course in hormones for fertility and food, and then we're going to go step by step into my 5-step Fertile Plate Method, and then you also get a 28-day done-for-you meal plan so you can get started ASAP. The link to see it is below. The third issue I see with food and fertility is we are focused on the wrong things. Most of the research that we have on the diet industry, on the wellness industry, on health, fertility, is done on postmenopausal women and or men. Cycling women are left out of a lot of research studies because our cycles are variable day to day. We operate on a monthly cycle, not a daily cycle like men do. And that creates a lot of issues for researchers. And so up until recently, cycling women have just been left out of a lot of the studies. So a lot of the general recommendations we have for health and wellness are based on a population that it's not us. It's based on men and postmenopausal women. And so when you hear phrases like the eat less, move more, work out harder, or calorie restriction, just know that a lot of the things that we've been taught to focus on when it comes to health have nothing to do with us and can actually harm our fertility. They are not meant for monthly cycling humans. They are meant for men who operate on a 24-hour hormone cycle, which I would love to do a video on that someday, or postmenopausal women who also operate on a very similar structure. And so it does not apply to women who are trying to boost their fertility. So when we talk about guidelines and recommendations, we have to take a look at first where that research is coming from. And I see a lot of women focused on the guidelines that I was taught, you were taught: low fat, low calorie, work out hard, wake up early. If you need less sleep, that's better. There's so many guidelines and cultural narratives that we've been taught that can actually harm our fertility as women. And so whenever we're talking about recommendations or anything like that, we gotta look at where that's coming from first. Now that you know the 3 biggest food issues we're facing in the fertility world today, I encourage you to check out the Find Your Fertile Path quiz in the link below, or in the comment section below, where you're gonna get your own personalized fertility quick start plan to get you started ASAP. That's all we have for the video today. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for bearing with me while I did the quick outfit change. I hope you have a wonderful day, and if you like this fertility nerd stuff, definitely hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.